my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR. And, she said, we're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady. I mean, they're crazy far left.
If you look on the right side, Jamie, where it says the truth is a distraction from getting things done, that is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this, because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth.
Oh, no.
They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become
what?
A bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh my God.
Clip 1. Bill Maher has taken the fight straight to NPR for their biased reporting. And the clash was as hilarious as it was spicy. NPR is supposed to stand as a neutral voice, delivering news without slant or favoritism. But reality tells a different story. Instead of staying balanced, NPR seems to have chosen a side. And here's the twist. Even though they leaned toward Maher's position, he didn't let them off the hook. In classic Maher fashion, he slammed the outlet for failing at the very job they claimed to uphold. And the takedown was nothing short of fiery. So, let's dive in.
Heads of NPR and PBS testified before Congress this week amid accusations of liberal bias. Should the government continue to send taxpayer dollars to public broadcasters? Well, a little background here. I mean, they've been after them the Republicans have wanted to get rid of PBS for as long as I can remember. This crowd will probably do it. I mean, I also read my namesake, Catherine Maher, was head of NPR. And, she said, we're completely unbiased. Give me a break, lady. I mean, they're crazy far left.
So, Maher didn't hold back. He opened by flat out admitting that NPR and PBS are way out on the far left. Now, their executives will swear up and down that's not true. But come on, we've all seen the receipts. Just look at April 2024 when one of NPR's own senior editors, Yuri Belina, blew the whistle, saying the network had completely surrendered to the progressive worldview. That's not a conservative smay. That's an insider confession. And it doesn't stop there. NPR's own CEO, Catherine Maher, later admitted they failed to cover the Hunter Biden laptop story when it actually mattered. Selective oops, you decide. And if that wasn't enough, Congress grilled NPR and PBS in 2025, pointing to their nonstop obsession with race, gender, and identity politics. Neutral, balanced, please. These outlets have picked a side, and Bill Maher lit them up for it. And folks, it was scorching.
So, I mean, I think we're past the age, really, where the government, first of all, why do we need to subsidize? Why can't we have outlets like this? And we're so polarized. These outlets became popular at a time when Republicans and Democrats didn't hate each other and weren't at each other's throats and didn't think each other was an existential threat. In that world, you can't have places like this, I think, anymore. They have to be private.
To admit, I kind of agree with Emma on this one. When you really think about it, PBS and NPR are funded in large part by the government, which makes them vulnerable to political influence. Any administration, left or right, could quietly lean on them, shaping the narrative to fit their own agenda. That kind of setup creates a dangerous loophole where what's supposed to be unbiased reporting risks becoming state-approved messaging. And let's be honest, once an outlet relies on government sponsorship, it's only a matter of time before pressure turns into propaganda. Anyway, let's keep rolling the clip.
I think Yuri Berliner, ex-NPR employer, his piece this week, where he said that they should just let go of the funding. I love NPR. I listen to NPR almost every day, have since 1975, when my parents used to play it in our Chevrolet Caprice when I was like 9 years old. I love it for its point of view, but since 2020, it has no longer been general. I remember in 2021, my then 9-year-old asked me, and of course she has no sense of context. I don't pump her full of things like this. She said from the back seat in a very different car, she said, "Daddy, why is it that NPR is always playing the same thing?" And I said, "What do you mean the same thing?" And I swear she said, now she doesn't have a vocabulary, but she said, "It's always about how somebody can't do something." And that what she was getting at was that. I wouldn't have said that about the NPR that I knew back in the day, and I wouldn't have said it 10 years ago, but that is what it is now.
I'm with Maher on this. In the lead up to last year's election, NPR zeroed in on the Trump campaign like a laser. Non-stop coverage, scrutinizing every slip of the tongue, every gesture. Even NPR's own public editor acknowledged that a flood of criticism came in over how often Trump got airtime or how his statements were replayed, corrected, and debated, all more incessantly than many believed fair. But here's the twist. This barrage didn't always look like journalism digging for truth. It felt more like an effort to spotlight every misstep, amplify confusion, and turn up the pressure, especially on voters who hadn't made up their minds yet. If the goal was to spark dissection toward Trump among undecided folks, well, it sure smelled like that.
The fact that the government was funding NPR is crazy. Like this, you can't have a completely biased, one-sided media organization that's funded by the government and taxpayers. That's crazy. And they went over all the amount of people that were on NPR that were Democrats, and it's 100%.
Yeah.
It's like out of 87 people, it's 100%.
Look at the New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, so that none of that should be a surprise to anybody who's
But the New York Times is at least a privately funded company.
Right.
I mean, it's like NPR relied on tax money, and there's this giant outrage that the government's going to defund.
That's absolutely crazy. The Democrats really managed to game the system to tilt the playing field in their favor, because having 80% of NPR's newsroom made up of Democrats is nothing short of shocking. Think about that for a second. This isn't some private outlet with a political agenda stamped on its sleeve. This is a news agency funded in part by the government and by taxpayers like you and me. With that kind of public backing, the bare minimum expectation should have been balance. A 50-50 split, half Democrats, half Republicans, would at least guarantee a diversity of thought and perspectives. Instead, what we've got is a newsroom echo chamber where one side dominates the narrative and the other is nearly shut out. That doesn't just skew reporting, it erodes public trust in journalism altogether. And MR calling it out only exposed just how deep this imbalance runs.
At the end of the day, the reality is the internet exists.
Yeah.
And you don't need to publicly fund something that's clearly biased when the internet exists.
Right.
You can get whatever you want. If you want to just absorb and consume only left-wing media, there's so much available. You can go find it. But our tax dollars should not be going to that.
No. And to be fair, if anybody wants to know what the hell's going on in the news, they can just listen to the President's Daily Brief podcast, frankly.
Oh, your podcast.
I'm good, right? Yeah, that's some... Yeah, boy, I just stuck that in there.
I can't find this fucking...
Joe Rogan is absolutely right on...
Joe Rogan is absolutely right on this one. In today's world, the internet is everywhere. Accessible to anyone with a phone, a tablet, or even the cheapest laptop. You don't need to rely on government fund outlets or legacy media giants when authentic, unfiltered news is just a few clicks away. The beauty of the internet is that it breaks the monopoly. You're no longer stuck with whatever narrative a handful of elite journalists decide to push. Instead, you can explore dozens of credible, independent sources, compare their coverage, and make up your own mind. Sure, you have to sift through noise and misinformation. But that's where discernment comes in. If you take the time, you can find real reporting, genuine investigations, and perspectives that mainstream outlets conveniently ignore. In a media landscape that often feels manipulated, the internet is the one place where true balance and choice still exist.
Show me a story that concerns you. That's fantastic.
As far as the accusations that we're biased, I would stand up and say, please show me a story that concerns you, because we want to know and we want to bring that conversation back to our newsroom.
And then they have all these.
And then all this fat phobia and its racist past and present. Some white people may choose thumbs up because it feels neutral, but some academics argue that opting out, what does that mean? Thumbs up signals lacks awareness about white privilege, akin to society associating whiteness with being raceless. What?
God.
What does that mean?
Or how about how racism became a marketing tool for country music?
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
God.
Interestingly, NPR has always tried to wear the mask of neutrality, insisting time and again that they are not biased. But when you dig even a little deeper, the facts tell a very different story. A quick scroll through their website shows a steady stream of articles and reports that lean heavily towards supporting Democratic narratives, while stories that might favor Republicans are either buried, downplayed, or framed with a skeptical slant. This pattern is too consistent to be accidental. So when Trump argues that NPR and PBS should be defunded, he isn't speaking out of thin air. Why should taxpayers foot the bill for a network that doesn't fairly represent the diversity of political thought across the country? If public money is going to be spent, then the public deserves balance, not bias. And right now, NPR has done little to prove it deserves that trust or that funding.
Side, Jamie, where it says the truth is a distraction from getting things done. That is such a fucking Orwellian thing to say. Click on that just so you can hear her say this, because it's so bananas that someone would say this out loud and not think it's...
One of the most significant differences, critical for moving from polarization to productivity, is that the Wikipedians who write these articles aren't actually focused on finding the truth.
Oh, no.
They're working for something that's a little bit more attainable, which is the best of what we can know right now. And after 7 years there, I actually believe that they're onto something. That for our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth isn't necessarily the best place to start. In fact, I think our reverence for the truth might have become
What?
a bit of a distraction that is preventing us from finding consensus and getting important things done.
What?
Oh, my God.
So, there you have it. At its core, NPR has never really been about digging for the unvarnished truth. It's been about carefully shaping consensus. Instead of giving listeners the raw facts and letting them decide, the network often frames stories in ways that guide audiences toward a preferred conclusion. And who benefits most from that? The Democrats. They've mastered the art of using NPR as a megaphone to push progressive talking points and advance their political agenda. From cultural issues to policy debates, NPR has routinely amplified narratives that align neatly with the left's playbook, while alternative viewpoints are either dismissed or conveniently ignored. It's less journalism and more subtle indoctrination dressed up in the credibility of a publicly funded news outlet. That's why critics argue NPR has become less of a watchdog for the people and more of a weapon for the woke. And Bill Maher saw it, too.
Time for the media to admit that they blew the whole thing way out of proportion, because as always with media these days, they don't cover what's most important, just what's most fun to watch. There are 15.2 million college students in the U.S., and 2,300 have been arrested. That's 1/67th of 1%, and half of the ones in New York weren't even students. But we were given the false impression that these protesters are the voice of their generation, having found a cause for which they were willing to go to the tents and to the barricades. Oh, please, these kids are more violent when their team wins a championship.
Maher nailed it. The media today isn't concerned with doing what's right or delivering hard facts. It's obsessed with what's flashy, fun, and guaranteed to grab clicks. Instead of prioritizing truth, they focus on drama, turning every minor slip-up into breaking news and every political debate into a circus. And let's be real, it's all about money and fame. Outrage sells, scandal trends, and exaggeration keeps the ratings high. Fact-checking, that's almost an afterthought buried under the rush to be the first headline on your feed. The result is a news cycle that thrives on hype, where the goal isn't informing the public, but entertaining them at all costs. Maher's point is clear. When the media acts like a reality show instead of a truth teller, society pays the price. Because without accountability and accuracy, we're left with noise instead of news.
These kids chant, the whole world is watching. They're right. But only because you assholes with the cameras won't show anything else. Isn't there a bear in a swimming pool somewhere you should be covering?